monologue until he shows up. And we're live, starting in the middle of a sentence, as we sometimes do. I always go for that vibe. It is Thursday, the 4th day of December, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock in Washington, D.C., and outside of Ottawa, Canada, in the province of Ontario, which means it is 5 o'clock in San Francisco, where I currently am, with this gorgeous hotel backdrop of a curtain and a wall, which is the sort of standard hotel backdrop. Hotels, I reiterate my long-standing complaint that y'all don't think hard enough about live streaming backgrounds when you design rooms. I want you to fix that. It's just not acceptable you get a hotel room, you pay good money, you get, the Keurig coffee, you get the bed, you get the room service, but you don't get a decent live streaming background. And I'm sorry, that's just it's just subpar service, and I want you to do something about it. Folks, we have a guest today, so I am going to keep the monologue short. Which is to say, I'm going to cut it off right here. The sun is shining, which is a bald-faced lie in San Francisco at this time of day. The sun is not out at all, but the birds are chirping. It is going to be a great freaking day, and you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a freaking revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features is that occasionally Alicia and I will be talking about something, just sort of shooting the crap, and the name Giorgia Meloni comes up, and we realize that we have lost track of how, has she been just absorbed by the Italian deep state, by the European Union, or is she in fact running riot over the political system? And we say, we need an expert on Italian politics to talk about this and to bring us up to speed. And so Alicia just goes off and finds one. And that is what happened today. And another one of the revolutionary features is that we then sandbag this person with an inane monologue about hotel rooms, dog shirts, and how he ended up making the bad life choice of being on this show. All of which is a long-winded way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to have our esteemed guest, Francesco Galietti, who is joining us to bring us up to speed on what how the Italian populists elected a neo-fascist, and then we never heard from her again.
It's not true. America just takes up all the oxygen in the room, as usual.
It's true. We have our own obsessions. I am sort of joking, but the question of has she taken over Italian politics, or has Italian politics taken over her, is an interesting and pressing one. Alicia, why don't you introduce our esteemed guest?
Right, and I would love to take credit, but my friend Cosimo recommended Francesco because it's just nice to have friends around the world who know smart people. Francesco is the head of a political risk consultancy called Policy Sonar in Rome, but he has been around in many different places, some of which I recognize, some I do not. The Ministry of Economy and Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I do not know what Casa Dispositi e Prestiti is. That may require some explanation. But Francesco, thank you for coming today. We are really curious to hear about the state of Italy, not just as a state, but the current conditions and how it's operating. And has this government changed things? Is it as bad as it was predicted to be? Are there good things?
Yeah.
Yeah. So get us started.
Yeah, let's get started. Hi, Ben. Hi, Alicia. Thanks for having me on the show. Great pleasure. And there is no sun in Rome. Well, what have you done? Normally it's supposed to work the other way around, but anyway, it's gray, it's foggy, and it's humid, and well, anyway, let's not complain.
It's It's Hadrian's revenge.
Possibly.
Do you have snow? Because I have snow.
We do have snow, just not in Rome. We have it on the Alps, which is where I come from. I'm an alpine animal. I'm originally from Torino, and which is right next to the French border. But I moved to Rome long ago with the Banga Banga government. I served as a consigliere under the great Berlusconi. And I was at Treasury. I was not at the Prime Minister's office. And none of the fun, in case you're wondering. It was dull and boring. But I mean, that's why I ended up in Rome. And I've been witnessing the constant changes of the Italian political scene ever since. So I've seen all sorts of things occur. I've seen the rise of the technocrats. I've seen Mario Monti. Then I've seen the rise of the white shirts, Matteo Renzi. And a very short boom-bust cycle. So like, you would expect them to stay on for 20 years or long cycles. No, all you get is boom-bust cycles of like 30 months. And then we went through the populist cycle, anti-establishment cycle. We had the Five Stars movement in power along with the League that we digested that as well. I think like we have this turning wheel that never stops. Each party gets a shot at government, like each one is given a chance. Whether it's left, right, anti-establishment, mainstream, who cares? I mean, like, Italians, they seem to be very unsentimental about these things. They want to have a taste, then they move on to the next thing. When I arrived in Rome, I was very young, I was like 25 at the time. I struggled to be called you. I mean, like we have this difference between vous and tu. So I was so young that like it was like problematic to get a proper level of formality in Rome. But there was a cabinet member in the Berlusconi government who was super young, and it was Giorgia Meloni. So we tend to think as Giorgia Meloni as something completely new. That's misleading. Giorgia Meloni, I mean, her personal story is interesting. I mean, she basically was abandoned by her father. I mean, the father he didn't want to be her father, her sister's father, and she grew up in this family. It was her mother, her sister, and herself. You had these three women. Clearly, the bond between these three was super strong. And then she surrogated this father with the party. Okay, she grew up in the ancestor of Brothers of Italy, a post-fascist party, and it was like in comics you sometimes have this pattern, this dynamics that you have to lose something to access a different level. Like Bruce Wayne has to lose mother and father to become the Batman, and so Giorgia Meloni. She clearly replaced the father with the party, okay? And she advertises this a lot. She has her own biography, Io sono Giorgia, in which she says lots of things which are only partly true, that she's a mother and a Christian and blah, 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 blah. But like she keeps harking back on this idea that like politics for her is more than just a profession, okay? She's on a mission. So I don't know whether
And how do how do we understand the mission? I mean, she's what do you understand as the core of Giorgia Meloni as a politician? It doesn't seem to be. There seems to be a strong anti-LGBT component of it. There seems to be an Italian nationalist component, but she's not at war with the EU. She's not, trying to revolutionize it. So, like, what is the the political core?
I think you hit the nail right on its head. We are led to believe she's on a mission, and there is something higher, almost ideological or religious about her being in politics, and yet we don't even understand what that is. Okay, so like we're contemplating all these 3 years in power, and we see no reform, not even one pushed through. So less, she's stable, but she's static. Okay, like she's not moving. Which clinging to power is already something. In an age of volatility, not falling is already something. But like, there's no sense of direction. Like you don't understand where she's going. Okay, you get it. She wants to cling to power. Okay, that we all understand. And that she wants to consolidate her grip on power, then we also understand. She's at war with unelected powers. She hates the judiciary, which we need to watch closely because it's only that much, and you are another Orban. So like, but like, there is no sense of, I mean, like, it's as if she wanted to use all the stuff that you mentioned, like her very rabid rhetoric about like civil rights. Yes, she uses it only intermittently, though, and she uses it like to keep a faction in her own electorate. Okay, I'm still with you. I'm still one of you. I still hate migrants. But at the same time, as you say, she doesn't want to wage a war with Ursula von der Leyen, and like I think that you have several. You have lots of evidence of this. Like Steve Bannon, he grew very fond of Meloni. And then at some point, he railed at her repeatedly. You have changed. You have betrayed the credo. You're not really what you pretended to be, blah, 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 blah. And when you see the depth of this anger, okay, you sense some jealousy, okay, like now you're kissing and hugging Elon Musk, and I thought I was the one. Okay, there's some of that as well. There's some of that as well. But then, if you move to the agitprop level, like the ideological level, I mean, like you can see that Meloni has this unique ability that everyone she gets in the room into, she convinces that she sinks very easily. She bonds very easily.
Charisma.
Everyone comes out of a meeting with her thinking, I understand her true nature. I only after a few months to have these hysterical episodes, or so she's a big question mark. I think she's trying to stay alive. Italian politics has not the mortality rate of Italian politics remains unparalleled in Western democracies. The average shelf life of an Italian PM continues to be very low. So I think her first imperative is stay alive, stay in power, minimize error. She's like a tennis player who tries to look at the stats and says, I need to reduce unforced errors, unsolicited errors as much as possible. Yeah.
I have two questions.
So this is...
Ben, sorry.
Oh,
can I?
Go ahead, Alicia.
It's kind of part and parcel, but like, one, does the Italian system, because you guys have elections a lot more frequently than other countries, is there kind of like an insulation that helps turn governments that may be problematic over more quickly? And then secondly, just going back to Berlusconi, who was like the herpes of Italian politics. I'm sorry, I know you went in under his administration, but like he just kept coming back. What made him so different that he could do that, especially with all the scandals?
Yes. But so for Berlusconi, I think we need at least 2 other episodes of the show. I'm a classical liberal, a moderate conservative. I was deeply embarrassed by all the whoring around of Berlusconi, etc., and even more, honestly, that was the lesser part. I think that the really disturbing one was the growing the closeness with Putin. That was the really problematic one. That said, and like there's no way that can be forgotten ever or condoned, or but that said, I miss him greatly. so there was also a good part to him which we tend to disregard, of course, but like if I compare him to what I see around these days, I would say that he had a good heart that I'm not seeing these days. Anyway, the question was like, what are the antidotes in the system? I would say that I mean, we don't have like when you are elected, it doesn't mean that you are in power for 5 years, no matter what. That's. I mean, when you're elected and you are appointed by the president, that's just the beginning of the journey. There is absolutely no guarantee that the journey will last the full 5 years term. In fact, what we always had is within the same legislature, if the numbers allowed different combinations, you would find like very diverse governments within the same parliament. And like we had that. So I would say that the biggest, the guy who really calls the shots is the head of state. And this is what is so complicated to explain to non-Italians, because like we don't have a direct election of the head of state. The head of state is elected by parliament. And it's normally a very old person, a little bit like the conclave in the Vatican, okay? Like you have the same geriatric pattern. You elect them old because you want to make sure that at some point, well, we move on and we don't stick with the same guy for 30 years. Okay, so like the thing is, I don't know how that mechanism, which worked well in the past, now can be reconciled with longevity. It's like these days, situations with people well into 100 years are not so infrequent. So anyway,
And the powers of the head of state include naming the prime minister,
yeah, not just
approving the
naming the
government. What
prime
else?
minister or sacking him, which is non-negligible power. It includes dissolving parliament as well, and even in foreign affairs, is a supreme guarantor or if international agreements. So he's like basically, forget Trump, but like normally when you have someone who looks at like the procedures and like they would look at what the Italian president does as, so this guy really matters. We did not expect that. So like it's a quasi-monarchic power and it's well hidden. It's well hidden, and it's the ultimate prize. Meloni wants, for the first time in Italian history, to make sure that the next head of state is either a friend of the right or herself. Okay, it just depends on the age. To be eligible to run for the president's role, you need to be 50 years, and like Meloni will be past 50. In 2029, when Mattarella will step down, but we're not there yet. Okay, so
How long can you be in that role?
7 years, renewable. And then what is happening is the head of state, like now, it's become a trend. They easily get a second mandate. So it's a very non-volatile, very big power, very stable. And it's basically at the pinnacle of the deep state. So imagine for a moment you are a deep stater, a magistrate, some sort of law enforcement senior officer, senior bureaucrat in some department of important ministries like Treasury or Bank of Italy, Directorate. Okay, these people, for their careers, they look for some sort of anchor. And they have two choices. Either they make a bet on the pro tempore rulers. So let's say like they show up at party meetings of Meloni and stuff like that, because they think that Meloni is what they need for the next 2-3 years. So tactical, opportunistic behaviors, or they opt for the long run, and in that case, the ultimate anchorage is the Quirinale, the presidential palace. There is
As you were talking, it sounded
a
like
different state.
Yeah. Well, it's that the description of it sounded like if our governor general in Canada actually had power, right? Like, because they do the function of appointing and removing, but they're not really given any authority to be able to have that role. That's actually a little bit frightening. Okay, so different question. This one was coming from the audience. Leo asked this. What does the public think of Maloney? Like, are they afraid that she may become the president? Is there any kind of like, is she popular?
She is popular. Her popularity ratings are still okay. They have, however, they're no longer going up. They have plateaued several months ago, and now they're going down. So the question is whether it's going to be a very steep decline or a very steady one. Her biggest strength, however, is her relative strength. It doesn't really matter how popular she is, as long as there is no alternative to Meloni. And that's exactly where we are now. Like there are no contenders. If you turn
Hmm.
your gaze to the left, there's no one. There is an ex-prime minister, Giuseppe Conte, who's a leader of a pro-Russia, pro-China party called the Five Stars Movement. And
Right.
there is Ellie Schlein, who is a very, very illiterate leader of the PD, the Italian Social Democrats. So we're, I think we're still in an age where people choose individuals and not parties, and you can see that's an overarching trend we had it like Meloni or Berlusconi or Romano Prodi, but like right now, like Meloni enjoys her solitude, and obviously she wants to remain in power. So it's she probably hopes that this situation will drag along for a while.
Okay, but explain something to me because I'm very American and don't understand the alternative sources of power that you're talking about or alluding to. So you guys have lurched from, as you say, from every party to every party. I am old enough to remember the pre-Berlusconi era when there was a Christian Democratic Party and a communist party. Then there was Berlusconi and Forza Italia, and then there were Five Stars, and then there were, Romano Prodi and the technocrats, and then there's the League and this woman, and yet Italian policy seems really continuous across a lot of different administrations, notwithstanding these violent lurches
Yes.
in the apparent political environment. And so, my question is all of this really just optical, and does it not matter what the political layer in Italy is talking about saying, or or does any of this actually, like, what is the relationship between, you elect whatever government in Italy you elect, and you still have Italy kind of looks like Italy and behaves like Italy in the
Yes.
international space, and in the and its economy kind of chugs along at the same rough, uh, uh, you know, exciting and dynamic in the north and not so much in the south, and it's a manufacturing power, and all of that kind of goes along as though there were no politics at all. And so my question is, what is the relationship between Italian electoral democracy and Italian policy?
Yes. Well, I guess that the answer is, in terms of policies, the reason why you can't tell the difference between left and right and populists and mainstream is basically because there is an automaton that is running the country, which is the bureaucracy. Yeah, it's an automaton, it's a golem, call it as you wish, but like these people who do not crave the media limelight are the ones running the country. And they've been doing so for many years. There is a, I mean, you can, I mean, after a while, when you get to know them, you can recognize their knee-jerk reflexes, etc., etc. A big question is that there is a demographic issue that is inevitably coming up. Many of these people who have silently run the country for many years, well or less well, they will go into retirement. So the real issue is who will be in power when these people are replaced. Because that is really when you rebuild the backbone, the skeleton of the Italian state. So that is I mean, and of course this affects various layers. There's not just the elites, okay? There is not just the governor of the Bank of Italy, the director general of the treasury, the head of the police, the commander general of the Carabinieri. I mean, this goes down to the very last clerks. Okay, so that's question number one item, which helps explaining what you just said. And the other one is the economy, luckily enough, is only partly controlled by the state. Okay, like the really vital component of the Italian economy is a plethora, myriads of Italian SMEs, which are integrated in larger German industrial value chains, etc., etc. Like these are people who have very little to do with Rome, with politics, and with a few large state-owned companies. Okay, so it's not like France where you have a big central state. You have lots of freedom, you have lots of agility. I mean, like clearly, if you're fixated with Rome, you only see that handful of big state-owned companies. But there is life outside Rome. I keep reminding myself of that.
I mean, it's a striking thing when you visit Italy as an outsider that, you know, you hear all this stuff about how dysfunctional Italian politics are, and Italy actually runs as a quite functional state in a way that is actually a little bit confusing from, you know, our chaotic politics make the United States not work. Um, you know, there's all kinds of, like, you might get detained at an airport these days, right? There's a very direct line between political dysfunction and governance dysfunction. And Italy, you can walk in the middle of a political crisis and it just works fine. And there's it's a very confusing thing as an American to see. But I'm still hung up on the point because if I were Italian, what you just said is my vote doesn't matter. And there's this oligarchic cabal of deep staters who actually run the country. And by the way, really important decisions are at least economy and regulatory wise are made in Brussels anyway. And so why shouldn't an Italian voter feel absolutely free to treat voting as a purely expressive, I'm pissed off today, so I'm going to vote for Forza Italia, or I have a populist streak. So
already. It's already.
Yeah. So what's wrong with that? What is the you know, if in fact there's this big disconnect between the electoral democracy and actual governance, why shouldn't people feel like, well, your vote doesn't really matter, so you may as well have fun with it?
So actually, we do have voters disenfranchisement. Okay, like Italian voters' turnouts tend historically to be much higher than those in the West. We have among the highest voters turnouts. But
Do you know what it is? Like, is it 70, 80?
yes, it's around that level. But we when you look at polls, you immediately see that there are 40% of non-respondents. So basically, that's a lot. Okay, and then we do have a lot of anti-establishment vote. Okay, so like you have to like, if we, instead of looking at the big blocks, we look at non-voters and the voters who choose anti-establishment parties, like the League to the right or Five Stars to the left, I would say that the overall amount is pretty impressive. Okay, so we do have mechanisms that somehow like make divide and conquer. So they make sure that this disenfranchisement is not funneled into a single block, into a monolith. Okay, to avoid a worst case scenario. So like clearly Meloni has this curse that she has to deal with Matteo Salvini and the League every day. Okay, I think it's as a punishment for coming from where she comes from. God has given her Matteo Salvini to babysit every day, and I can assure you, I don't envy that. And symmetrically to the left, the PD is left babysitting the Five Stars movement. Okay. What we have seen just once, and I assure you it wasn't nice to witness, was the League and Five Stars in government together. When that occurred, Italy signed up for the Silk Road Treaty with China. Okay, you don't want to see that happening ever again. So, and the one who can avoid.
So there really does need to be a babysitter.
Yeah, I mean, like the head of state is the supreme babysitter. Is the one who allows these babies to wreak some havoc, but at some point she says, "Okay, now basta, back to school." So, and that role is very coveted. Everyone wants a friend as head of state. And the guy who's currently head of state is 85 years old. He's in good shape, but he's 85 years old. So
that's ridiculous almost. I don't know. I feel like there's like, what about Gen X? Can't we just have power now?
Yeah, but if they elect Meloni, who would be 51, Meloni could still, I mean, you see my point. She can stay in power
She would
forever.
be.
Yeah.
That's.
But would she be a responsible actor as head of state, or is that where her freak flag would finally fly? Sorry, that's very hard to say.
She's adapting to circumstances, and so like, her job is incredibly complicated because like it must be. I would have a personality trauma because like she has like, imagine her day. You have the diplomatic advisor coming to you. And like, Madame Meloni, please, now we have our half an hour call with Ursula von der Leyen. And though she has to say the right words, avoid other words, say yes, nod, make long pauses, silence, very demure. Okay, then all of a sudden she has like the diplomatic advisor. Oh, we have Donald Trump on the line. Can I pass him through? And then she has to completely switch to a different set of semantics and priorities. Okay, and then back, because like the German ambassador is on the line and she wants to set up a bilateral with Friedrich Merz. Imagine like managing all that. Like she must be very good at managing bilaterals. The problem is when you have all of these in the room together. Right, and you have to show your true self, provided there is one.
Well, that was, I was going to say, if there is, I'm going to steal the questioning. I have 4 questions more before we lose you in about 10
Yes.
minutes. 2 are serious and 2 are self-serving. The first one is, are your parties pretty regional? Like, do they have regional strength? And the reason I ask this is because I think I heard this about maybe La Liga up in like Lombardy, but also I was recently in Alessandria and Torino. But in Alessandria, I saw something strange, which was this man with a table full of anarchist books promoting these things. And I don't know why he was there. I'm just curious, like, do the parties tend to be regional? Do they actually get national? Is there a divide between different areas?
Everything. The League was historically a Neo-Bavarian party which dominated the ex-Habsburg territories, so Lombardy and Veneto and Friuli Venezia Giulia. So that's why it was called Neo-Bavarian, sort of like it's uh,
It was originally called the Lombardy League, right?
Triveneto, or yeah, there was Lega Lombarda as well. But anyway, if I think that there is some truth to that whole definition, because if you look at all the businesses there, they clearly have their I think that their focus is really geared towards Germany and or Switzerland, or like they gaze north. Uh, so it's true, and then we have neo-Bourbonic parties like the Five Stars movement, which tends to be stronger in the south, in particular in Apulia and in Campania, and used to be relatively strong in Sicily as well. That's why I call them neo-Bourbonic. All of these parties tried at some point to expand into uncharted territory, so we ended up with the League in Calabria and with the Five Stars movement running municipalities in the north, like Torino, for instance, which was run by a Five Stars movement mayor. But now, after their peak, they have, I mean, like they're back to their original raison d'être. So, like Five Stars, very southern, League, very northern, Forza Italia, I would say evenly spread, PD evenly spread with the Red Bastion regions, Tuscany, Emilia, still Red Bastions, and Apulia. Otherwise, like evenly spread. And Brothers of Italy used to be, I mean, like back in the days, lots of public state employees would be Alleanza Nazionale voters. Strong footprint in the south, some in Lombardy as well. But I like these days they're well in excess, that they're around 20%. So what used to be their original shape and size has morphed into something bigger and more diverse.
And you brought up the bureaucracy again, or the public service, and that was my second serious question. So one is, well, this two part. One is Italy? I know a lot of really bright Italians, younger Italians, like 30s, 40s, that have all left the country, right? Like they're off somewhere else. Do you have a brain drain? Is that why people aren't going into the public service, or were there not jobs? And then the second part of that question is, how does the public feel about the public service? Do they notice it? Do they care? Do they have an
There is a
opinion?
massive brain drain. If I look at my high school comrades, like basically there's probably a couple left in Torino and they're like dentists. All the other have quit. Like the bankers and the lawyers are all in Paris and London, or in Milan. Milan is still Italy, last time I checked. But there is a massive brain drain, especially in the higher paid jobs. Civil service, it depends on the type of civil service. Again, we tend to be fixated with elite civil service jobs, but there's a little bit of everything. It's nothing new. The bulk of the Italian armed forces are from the south because, like, being in the military gives you lunch, a meal, it gives you status, and it gives you salary. So that's honestly, it's nothing new. I think it's like that everywhere, including in the States. Uh,
And Canada.
yeah, yeah. So, but yes, we do have that issue, and it's
And now for the
particularly
last
worrying in certain professions. Like if you think of medical education, like it costs an enormous amount of money to educate a doctor, like, and And I had like schoolmates who became doctors only to emigrate to France or Switzerland or Germany because the salaries are like 3 or 4 times as much as in Italy. So like that is an incredible dissipation of resources because you pump a lot of money into that education, but then someone else is using the fruits of all that.
But Italy also strikes me as being kind of, let's say, protectionist or insulated. Like it's impossible for an academic to crack into the Italian academic market if they didn't go all through academia there. Is this the case for other professions as well? Is it really hard for a foreigner to come in, integrate, get those kinds of jobs?
I teach at Lewis University. We do if we look at our body academic, there's lots of foreign professors. But Lewis is more an exception. It's a private university. It's a wealthy university, like Bocconi or Politecnico di Milano. They can afford to pay competitive salaries to non-Italian professors. Okay, but it's percentage-wise, I think they are more an exception. It's a top 5%. For the others, I think it's very complicated.
Okay, now they're serious questions, but they're completely self-serving. What is with the air in Piemonte? Is it as bad as everybody says? Does that cloud ever go away?
Which cloud? Sorry, I couldn't catch the
the air quality in Piemonte.
Piedmont.
Yes.
Well, I haven't lived in Torino for a long while. I mean, I think that we used to have lots of factories in Torino back in the days. Car maker Fiat was there. And if you look at the structure of the city, it's basically surrounded by hills. It's like a funnel. It doesn't help because you have lots of pollution accumulating and not swept away by the wind. It doesn't. I think that the shape of that territory doesn't help. It's like Florence. There are other side effects in addition to pollution. Like it's incredibly hot and torrid and humid in the summer, and it is incredibly cold in autumn.
I mean, I'm from Canada. So
Yeah.
Then my last question on this one, and Kate may want to jump in with her question, which may take a little bit of time. But then the second thing is, if you were a foreigner, would you think about moving to Italy?
Yes. As massively wealthy, yes. I think that it really depends where you're coming from. If you are massively wealthy, it makes sense because you have some very good infrastructure like medicine, healthcare, education, especially in some areas of the country. And so, like, if you really are a billionaire or a multimillionaire, yes. If you are somewhere in a bracket between 1 and 300K, I would consider other options as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is a very Germanic response, but like you asked the question.
You are from the north,
Yeah.
so I mean, this would be the stereotype.
Yeah.
We have you for 3 minutes, then you have to go. Kate, was this a question for Francesco? What about the bank acquisition drama?
It's terrible. It's terrible because Meloni got herself, she can't wriggle out of.
Wait, give us a little background on the
Meloni government is aggressively meddling into banking M&A. She has resuscitated a decrepit bank, Monte dei Paschi di Siena, which was kept alive with 11 billion euros of cash infusion from Italian taxpayers, and used it as a platform to move a war against Mediobanca, which was a patrician bank that is the gateway to a big insurance company, Generali. And I don't know why she did that, and I don't know whether she weighed the full consequences of what she did. And so earlier this year in summer, she was very triumphant that she had brought the patricians to their knees. And now the patricians are hitting back, and it's a bloodshed. It's just the beginning, and it's going to drag over for months. And it's okay. Listen, it's my profession. I do political risk, so I need some confusion. The real big risk for me is that I have to take risks. So one is Mario Draghi comes in, everyone feels reassured and has absolutely no need for political risk analysis because Mario is there and he will take care of it. Okay. I like
So he's
it.
bad for
I like
stability
it
is
as a
bad for
person. I
business.
hate it as a professional because it gets me out of business. Okay. The opposite risk is if the weirdos come in and start every day saying we want to leave the euro and the EU. At that point, the risk is completely off the charts, and investors are so scared that they don't even care asking. Okay, so I'm like a derivative caller. I fluctuate within a certain band. Yeah, yes,
That's how I feel about my job. The more chaos, the better it is for
yes,
me. As long as I
up to
didn't
a
cause the
point.
chaos.
Well, look, I run a whole publication that, there is nothing that is worse for Lawfare's readership or people's use of the site than
Yes,
stability,
not to
and it's we thrive off of the chaos. Francesco Galietti, thank you so much for joining us today. We want to be respectful of your time, but appreciate very much. Come back and join us anytime.
Yes, it was a
And
great
change my
treat.
mind about Berlusconi.
Great treat. We can discuss Berlusconi. There are no hold bars. I'm happy to do that. And thank you so much. It was great fun.
All right, folks, we have 15 minutes in which the phones are open, and we can stick to the subject matter at hand, or we cannot, and we can depart from it. I'm gonna start us with Alicia. Did you just publicly confess to the fact that you are considering moving to Italy?
I don't think I've hidden the fact that there's been a desire in the household to move somewhere in Europe. The placing has not been settled. However, Francesco did kind of dissuade me from that. I am not a billionaire.
Not yet. Um, so, in answer to John Hawkinson's question about the very estimable Andriy Yermak, we will be talking about it. We have a obviously one would like Nastya to be present for a conversation of Andriy Yermak, where and we are working on that. So chill, and we're gonna get to it. Um, uh, yeah. So I don't know. I still think that rural Ontario suits you.
It's hard to unseat rural Ontario, but I would prefer to move. I would like to live somewhere where I didn't speak that language or like it wasn't English. So London was
But
a
you
cop
speak
out.
all
I
languages.
don't speak any language well. I'm not Michael and his like fluency of all things. It's
Yeah.
just
Michael has English, Hebrew, Russian, French.
Italian, Spanish.
Good Italian and Spanish.
Oh, he's got like fluent Italian. He lived there for a couple of years.
Wow. That's um
He could do Italy
yeah, I
fine, but I'm a little concerned. And I wish we had more time with Francesco because I'd be like, what are those other countries?
there's the Italian regions of Switzerland, but you
Switzerland's so
can't.
expensive. If I'm not a billionaire and Italy needs billionaires, then Switzerland is out.
Yeah. Well, I'm just telling y'all, when I have to take political asylum somewhere, there's going to be summer in Iceland, winter in Costa Rica. That's my plan.
Really? I mean, I see the problem with like Iceland and the Nordics because Finland was also suggested is that it's iffy whether you get a summer. I mean, it's lovely. I love the Nordics. But
So,
I also
like,
like
I
summer.
actually don't mind not having a
I
summer.
think I would die without summer.
I
Like
don't love summer. and I come from a place with too much summer. And by the way, Costa Rica in the winter is a summer. And so I'm just, I think at that point in my life, um, and I'm going to be the last person to leave. I'm going to be like the guys clinging onto the wreckage of the boat in Washington. And yeah, bring it on, Pete Hegseth. But
Secretary.
That's Secretary of
Secretary. It's got double. It's an SS
Secretary of
secretary.
Murder,
Was
Pete
on his
Hegseth.
nameplate.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be the last to leave. But when if I'm like put on a plane and sent into exile, it will be. I'm just warning you, Iceland. You know, Iceland and Costa Rica. You are my destinations of choice.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a top. I feel like France linguistically would be easy. I'm not sure that the people are overly welcoming for foreigners. Somebody's mentioned Spain. I don't know if I can learn Spanish. Same with Portuguese. I feel like that's just a step beyond my abilities at this point in time in life. New Zealand is too far away. Everything becomes a long distance, long haul flight to get off of it. There's only like 5 million people. They seem to have a higher rate per capita of cults. I mean, I'd love to study them. It was nice to visit. Moving there seems hard. In Australia, everything's trying to kill you.
I spent a lot of time in New Zealand as a young person, and I rode my bicycle all over the place. I spent like 2.5 months riding a bicycle around New Zealand, and I love New Zealand, and I would go back in a heartbeat. It is very far away from anything. And I was there before the internet, and so it was really far away. But it's still really far away. It's 4 hour flight from Australia. The closest, the closest country is Australia, and then there's, nothing. But it does have certain advantages, like, you know, it's the most beautiful place in the world. I think I would feel a little isolated there. I'm impressed by Paul Rosenzweig and his wife moved most of the year. They mostly live in Costa Rica now, and I think there's a lot to be said for that.
We have good friends who split time between Costa Rica and here.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for Costa Rica, but guys, all of that presupposes that in Alicia's case that she's emigrating, which may be, but in my case that I'm fleeing, and that is not happening, because what would you project on in New Zealand? What trouble? That's one of the problems with these places that we all want to flee to, is that there's no trouble to get into there. I did a projection operation in Reykjavik, and a single cop rode up on a motorcycle. And all of this is on video. You can see it on my YouTube page. He sat down next to me, and we talked about the images that I was projecting. And it was super lovely and super fun. But it didn't feel like getting into trouble. And so I am.
You could go and project on Gloriavale.
I mean, look, there's things you could do, but then, where's the drama? You project and then nothing happens.
Ooh, when they get really upset.
When I projected in Norway, the people in the Russian embassy you can hear them audibly giggling. They were so unoffended. They were like, I would put up an image and they would be like, they would clap if they liked it. And I need some dramatic tension in my life.
Interesting. That's why you really liked it when Stephen Marsh was on and the two of you were just talking over each other.
That bothered you though? That we were like
I like my morning, Francesco, quietly saying that Berlusconi was great and there was no argument. I mean,
All right, so Lior suggests that I come to Israel and project in Israel. There actually was a projection in Israel the other day. I don't know who did it, but somebody projected in Ukrainian on the Russian embassy in Tel Aviv, and it has made the rounds. I don't know whether there was police response. I have never projected in Israel for two reasons. The first is that I am not confident I could get a laser on a flight to Israel. Um, I I just think that's a conversation with security officials I don't want to have. um, uh, the second reason, the more important reason, is that I have never been able to figure out what the likely police response was going to be. And I'm generally, despite my cavalier attitudes about such things, not interested in finding these things out the hard way. Um, I'm also um, showing up in Israel with a protest completely unrelated to local situations is a kind of an odd non sequitur. I have never tried to project in Israel. Not saying it will never happen, but yeah, somebody did do it recently, um, and
I think that sounds smart.
assume assuming it was not an AI fake, it was a glorious operation. All right, we will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to be here at 8 o'clock Pacific time because I do not need a morning this early in my life. So we are going to be back 11 o'clock Washington/Ontario time. Um, yeah, and 8 o'clock Pacific time. And maybe we'll be talking Andriy Yermak. Maybe we will be talking other things. Don't know who the co-hosts are going to be. Don't know who the guests are going to be. But I know that you'll be there. I'll be there, and it's going to be a blast.